I'm Amanda Seifert, and I'm going to be recording my case study, Module 15, AEP 858. I'm really not sure why my voice is not working real fast with my video today, but I've tried and I can't get it to correct, so we're going to go ahead and post this because it's due tonight. All right, an overall summary about what's happening in Golden Oaks High School. It is a district that attendance rates are very low. That's one of the problems happening. This superintendent has asked Mr. Rhodes to develop a plan to help increase those attendance rates. So he's got to do some research, find out what's been happening, why these attendance rates are so low. He evaluated the situation, and he can see that teachers have been using their own personal discretion to excuse students. There were a couple instances where the teacher went ahead and excused a student for a whole week for a vacation, a work job, to go on a job site with his dad, and that technically would have missed more than his accounted days of school, but the teacher went ahead and approved that. That really wouldn't happen at my school. All things like that, extra excuses, have to always go through the principal. So the staff have been approving the absences without authorization of kind of more of an authority figure administrator. There were 5 students there with a variety of different backgrounds that this case looked at. So Section 2 was legal and ethical issues. They were obviously breaking some of the truancy laws, the attendance rules of their own school district as to how many days can be missed. It looked like there was some favoritism between maybe athletic director and the football player, as he was missing several days a week and then was also given permission to go home on Friday afternoons and rest. The homeroom teachers were using personal discretion. They were violating the attendance policies, just letting kids off if they thought it was okay, not marking attendance. Their grades are going to be affected because they are not present at school to learn. And the school is also not following policy by allowing the staff to make the attendance decisions beyond their duties. So there are legal, and then there's just ethical, teacher ethics that are being, the lines being crossed here too. Section 3, what exactly has happened? So after reading everything and trying to put it into one sentence, I came up with, the school has become lax in following appropriate school attendance policies, which has caused their rates to drop and has led to chronic absenteeism. So they have a huge problem with their attendance rates, and I feel after reading this, it's just because they've kind of become lackadaisical on whether they're going to actually enforce their attendance policies. And I teach kindergarten, but I sure know that if a kid knows he can get away with something, he's sure going to continue to do it if there aren't any repercussions or any consequences for their actions. And I feel like parents are that way too. They're going to continue to push and go through the motions if it's being allowed. So my little graphic there is empty desks in the classroom because nobody's saying it's a problem. Section 4, the facts. So we know we've got 5 students from the school. We've got Mr. Rhodes, the principal, our athletic director, Dr. Newman, the superintendent, teachers, and our public school system. The unknown about the people are, we don't know anything about the rest of the student body. We really don't have too many details on the parents or the families or other teachers in the building, other staff in the building. We don't know a whole lot about race or ethnicity. The places, we know it's Golden Oaks High School. This is a suburban community that's just adjacent to a metropolitan area, and we are told that the community is becoming more diverse. Unknown are data on the other schools in the district and around the location of Golden Oaks exactly. So I think it would be interesting to compare their attendance rates to other schools in their area or in their district. The programs, we know they've got lots of extracurricular activities. They have 11 team sports and 31 different clubs that the students can be involved in. Unknown, we aren't really sure what curriculum programs they run. Don't know if they have any social emotional programs, which, after looking at some of the background information on these 5 students, that could be a major factor in attendance, and social emotional programs could be helpful. And we don't really know if they have a school counselor, if there's one available on a regular basis or not. Section 5 was to review and prioritize the information. So this situation could be damaging to all the stakeholders in the school and the community. You know, when we aren't requiring and aren't setting high standards for students or for families and parents, then they're just going to be mediocre. And so, you know, that is going to be damaging to the school. Obviously, with the attendance rates, school isn't going to be meeting their guidelines and standards that are set for them. The community will be damaged. We're going to have a lot of kids running around. They won't be educated in order to hold the jobs. If they're not at school, they could be causing trouble. My second point, the students and staff have an important stake in the outcome. The students' outcome is the most important. It's what they're going to learn and take away, and how they're going to be able to apply that to, you know, their futures. They need to be at school, especially at this high school level, and the elementary too. But, you know, they're getting ready to go out into the real world, you know, whether they go to college or a technical college or they just go straight into the workforce. You know, they have to learn some of the underlying things that are taught being at school. I have not seen that Mr. Rhodes has talked with any of the stakeholders, teachers, whoever, parents, about the attendance situations yet. I don't think he's addressed it yet that I could see with the students. So I really feel like there's a lot more I could learn about the situation. At this point, I do not feel that I know enough to make a data-informed and an equitable decision in order to set things up for school improvement. I feel like there's more background information that we need to know about the situation. Section 6, options and consequences. So I came up with 4 different options, and then we'll talk about what that means. Let me try to make my screen maybe a little bigger here. I can't tell. You can see everything or not. There we go. It's a little better. Option 1, don't make any changes. Continue to let the teachers make decisions based on their own discretion. Option 2, Mr. Rhodes would take away all attendance taking privileges from the teachers, and if the attendance policies are broken by students, then there will be consequences enforced, and kind of the same thing for teachers too. I didn't put that on there, but you know, if they're excusing students when they aren't supposed to be, then there'll be consequences for them as well. Option 3, we need to develop a plan to use a database system to track attendance as well as academic data, and then we can make data-informed decisions on school improvement and student development. At our school, we use a program called Skyward, and it's where we log all of our grades. It's where we can log behavior issues. It's where we take our attendance daily. Lots of those things are tracked there so that we can log onto that program and kind of see it all at a glance. And then option 4, the principal will have a staff meeting to evaluate and discuss attendance policies and procedures. The principal will meet with parents and students to explain attendance, expectations, and policies put into place to develop school improvement and student development in reference or in correlation with attendance. All right, number 7, evaluate the options. Option 1 was not making any changes. So the pros of this, I guess, I couldn't really see any. Maybe no confrontation. The principal just kind of lets things go as it's been going. Everybody's happy, I guess. So the boat isn't rocked. I don't really feel like that's a positive thing, but I couldn't really think of a positive way to have no changes here. The situation doesn't improve. The school attendance continues to decline. Students aren't learning, all those kinds of things. I think this is a really bad situation. Option number 2 would be if Mr. Rhodes took away all attendance privileges from teachers, and there are consequences if that's not followed. Pro, there's only one person being in charge of the attendance, therefore we know the policy is followed. If things are broken, we know whose feet that lies at. A con, I feel like all the principal's time would be on attendance and policy, making sure students are doing what they're supposed to and teachers are too. He wouldn't have a lot of time, he or she, to develop on school improvement. And with only one person in charge, there's not anyone else to kind of oversee those decisions. So if he starts to make decisions that maybe aren't ethical or legal, there's really no one there, you know, unless the superintendent is kind of overseeing him. Again, evaluating the options. Option 3 was to get the database system to track attendance. So a pro to this is it's very easy to use. You easily can compare the data and kind of track things. It could be used to make data-informed school improvement plans, so you can watch the trends, you can see how things compare, you can see, which days are missed, why they're missed, kind of those kinds of things. Cons, staff can easily forget to enter. I've done that several times at my school, but bless my secretary's heart, she's constantly saying, Mrs. Seifert, can you please enter your attendance? Also, substitutes don't have access to this unless you leave them your information. So on days where I randomly have a substitute, I just leave a sheet, she marks it, turns it into the office, or calls it down. So on those seldom days where I'm gone, that is easily fixed, but that's just one of the cons, of the program. A pro of that too is parents have Skyward access, and so they can see when my student's gone, and maybe more at the high school level, if they're skipping school or things like that, they can see, well, they weren't in school that day. Why is their grade so low? Oh, they weren't there because they weren't doing their work. Option 4, the principal would have staff meetings with the staff and then with the parents and students. A pro of this, everybody would be on the same page and they'd have access to the same information, which supports student development and school improvement. So I think that'd be a great one. A con, some of the families might not be able to attend the informational meetings, so you'd have to have a way for them to either access that meeting and watch it later or send home information. All right, choosing the best option. What I would really like to do is to combine my options 3 and 4. It would create a data-informed and equitable resource plan that supports school improvement and student development. So I would use a database system, kind of like Skyward. I'm sure there's other out there. That's just what I know. As well as conducting staff meetings and holding an open house for families and students at the beginning of the year, where all of this is laid out ahead of time. I could, I'll just read my next point. The meetings would be informational to explain how the new procedures are going to work and what the consequences will be if they're not followed. There will be policies that will explain what constitutes as an excused and unexcused absence. Everything's going to be very specific and spelled out so that there are no questions. Also, I know kind of at our high school, they discuss very thoroughly absenteeism at the beginning of the year before school starts. And then if they do have students that are still absent, there are letters sent home, again explaining the guidelines and what they're seeing and what's happening with their student. I think that might be in September or October maybe. Then again, if it still continues, letters are again sent out in March, kind of saying, this is what's happening. Now, in the meantime, there's lots of contact going on with parents, from the counselors, the principals, those kind of things. Getting the students to school is the most important thing. So I really feel like in the School Notes, this really needs to change to be a better benefit for everybody. All right, so in order to implement my decision, here we go. First, I'd hold a staff meeting to inform all the staff members about the improved school attendance policies and to explain what's expected out of them as teachers who are responsible for taking attendance. Second, I'm going to show the staff the new database system, walk them through the process. I'll explain how it will help us to make data-informed decisions. I can even make little cheat sheets, things like that, to make it super easy for the teachers to do. It really isn't a hard process to learn. Third, I'm going to hold an open house night to discuss attendance policies with parents and students. Again, as I mentioned before, I'm going to explain the expectations and the consequences. I'll explain to the parents and students how this will help our school to focus on school improvement and student development, and how it's very important. We can't improve these things if the students aren't there. The fourth point is I'm going to reiterate attendance policies and consequences with the students at the beginning of the year assembly. And then just underneath that, it says attendance will be evaluated on a weekly basis. If I notice that the plan is not improving attendance and staff accountability, then I'll evaluate that data again. I'll adjust and set up meetings with those people who I need to, and we will adjust the process from there. So honestly, this was a very interesting case study. We deal with absenteeism in kindergarten a little bit. At that age level, it really does fall on the parents. Maybe in high school it's a little different where they do have access maybe in ways to getting to school beyond parents having to wake them up and get them on the bus. we're very involved at our school with, being very careful of who is absent, why, and making sure that those kiddos are at school. For a lot of our students that are absent a lot,